Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. I wanted to answer in this particular video a very important question, a question that actually comes up quite often, which is what is the difference between Quranic Arabic and spoken Arabic? Now, there are many different angles that we can discuss this issue, and we can talk about it in quite a lot of details, to be honest. But I just kind of wanted to make this video as simple as possible so that everybody can truly understand. And so let's kind of break up the Arabic language into two types, okay? And hopefully the way that we categorize it will help us understand whether this question is even correct when somebody says, what's the difference between spoken Arabic and Quranic Arabic? Because, from one perspective, the question doesn't really make much sense, because is there a difference between, spoken Arabic and Quranic Arabic? But then from another perspective, it can make sense because there are some differences in today's day and age when we speak Arabic, which kind of differs from the Quranic Arabic. So I'll try to summarize it, inshallah ta'ala, to the best of my abilities. But let's look at Arabic today as we know it, the Arabic language, as two types, okay? There's one type of Arabic which is known as MSA, which means modern standard Arabic. And this is kind of the, standardized version of Arabic, the kind of Arabic that you would find in literature, on the news, that would be spoken in Arabic. And it's kind of the one which is most similar to the speech of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahabas, as we know it to be. Now, obviously, there are some nuances and some differences between that, and I'll touch upon that. But it's the Arabic which kind of is formal, okay? It's formal Arabic, and it's the one that kind of every single Arab country can understand. And then you have another type of spoken Arabic, which is the dialects, okay? Which is the lahajat. And what are the dialects? Well, basically, every single Arab country has its own particular way of talking, its own vernacular, its own way of using the Arabic language, which has kind of, developed, over, hundreds of years as they go by. And there are many different reasons, socially speaking, geographically speaking, that affect the language, but every country has its own. And so, for example, if you were to go to Morocco, you will find that the Arabic lahja that they have there, the dialect that they have there, is not the same as the one that you would find in Saudi. And then the one that you find in Yemen is not the same as the one that you find, for example, in the Emirates. And the one that they speak in Algeria is not the same as you'll find in Kuwait. And so with all of these Arab countries, you find, or countries in which Arabic is spoken, you'll find that those dialects, they differ from one another. And sometimes they differ greatly, to the point that it is not necessarily the case that each of these countries would be able to understand when the other country speaks in their own language. So for example, if you were to put an Egyptian person that speaks the lahja, their own dialect, in front of a Moroccan Arab speaker, it's not necessarily the case that they would both understand each other, because they have very distinct versions of Arabic that they speak, which is their own dialect, which is specific to their countries. However, all of them can understand, generally speaking, all of them can understand the modern standard Arabic. And so that's kind of the difference between the two that we have here. So we have MSA, the modern standard Arabic, which is the generalized version of the Arabic language that we can root back to, historically, to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And obviously, the only difference that you find in terms of, that modern standard Arabic, which is spoken today in comparison to the Prophet ﷺ, is that there are, styles of speaking that were a bit more eloquent back then that people don't necessarily use anymore, just due to, sometimes laziness, and also the lack of practicing of the Arabic language. And so, it may be a bit more, if you want to say, unstylistic. There's not much of a style, and there's not much, eloquence in the way that we speak today. However, there's no difference in terms of the vocabulary that's being used. So, for example, when we say, kayfa haluka, then those same words were used back then as well to say, how are you? However, within the dialects now, every country would have a different way of saying certain things. So, for example, the term "kayfa haluka," which means "how are you," will be used differently and pronounced completely differently. And in fact, different words are used in order to express that sentence. And so the dialects themselves for every single Arab country that is out there, or every country that speaks Arabic, you will find that they all differ amongst one another. And it's not necessarily the case that they will all be able to understand one another. However, they can understand the modern standard Arabic. And so when we now discuss the topic of is there a difference, or what is the difference between spoken Arabic and Quranic Arabic? Well, if we're comparing the Quranic Arabic to the dialects, then they're worlds apart. Okay, they're worlds apart. And that's for so many reasons. Like I mentioned, socially speaking, geographically speaking, and just things changing, as the years have gone by. But they are just truly worlds apart. Okay, they are not necessarily the same. Yes, there are certain words that are similar, but like for like, everybody would tell you that knows the Arabic language, dialects are one thing, and the Arabic that's spoken that's within the Quran, spoken by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is completely different. Now, if we're comparing the spoken Arabic, which is modern standard Arabic, to the Quranic Arabic, well, then we would say that in terms of general vocabulary and general style, right? We would say that there's not the usage of words are basically the same. The vocabulary is the same, and the vocab and the style of speaking, generally speaking, is the same as well. Except there is one difference, which is the Quranic Arabic, because it's the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has a level of eloquence that is not found in modern standard Arabic, in MSA, but it also has a level of eloquence that cannot be produced by human beings because it comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So although we might say in Arabic, ma hadha, man hadha, we say, what is this and who is this? And you would find the words man and hadha within the Quran as well, the same usage of those words, but the way that it's used within the Quran is far more eloquent than we could even produce. Why? Because it's the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so modern standard Arabic is kind of what a person would basically learn in order to make the jump of understanding the Quran better. Because the vocabulary, like I mentioned, is generally speaking the same. It's now just the style, right? Which is, the style of eloquence that is used in the Quran is worlds apart. And we, in fact, in order to understand the Quran properly and be able to appreciate the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we would actually have to study an entire science of the Arabic language, which is known as ilm al-balagha, which is the science of eloquency in the Arabic language. And when you study that, you will learn such principles that would allow you to appreciate the ayat in the Quran and the style in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed the Quran. And so from that perspective, yes, there is a similarity, which is the general usages of words, even though the Quran, it uses words in a far more eloquent manner than you could ever imagine. But is there a difference? Yes, it is. Is that it is far more eloquent than what the people speak, and it's far more eloquent than what we can actually produce. Now, that doesn't mean that in modern standard Arabic, learning it and understanding it, and then learning the science of balagha and developing your skills to be able to speak more eloquent is not possible. You can speak more eloquently. You can learn to become more eloquent in your speech. However, you can never be like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. لَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. Okay, there is nothing that is similar unto him subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is what makes the Quran, the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so unique, okay, in comparison to anything else. And so I hope that answers the question, inshallah ta'ala. Maybe it was a bit more detailed than expected, a bit more longer than I expected, but is there a difference between Quranic Arabic and speaking Arabic? From a perspective, yes, if we're talking about dialects. If we're talking about from the angle of modern standard Arabic, yes and no, and then I explained to you that the reason why there's a difference and why there isn't a difference. And so if you want to be able to understand the Quran now, and you want to be able to really dive deep into the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then learning spoken Arabic, which is the dialects, is not really going to aid you towards that. That is really just going to help you in terms of your interaction on a day-to-day basis with people in different countries. But the thing that's really going to aid you and support you and be the catalyst that will help you to understand the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is learning modern standard Arabic, the general standardized version of the Arabic language, and then further developing your skills of the other sciences of the Arabic language, like ilm al-nahwi wa ilm al-sarfi wa ilm al-balagha, which will aid you to understand the Quran. And then the other sciences of the religion that also help you and aid you towards that as well. I hope that inshallah ta'ala answers the question for those of you that may have had this question pop up in your mind before. If you want to study the Arabic language, remember there's no better time to start than today. Don't delay it. Let it be a thing that you start producing yourself or producing for yourself in this blessed month of Ramadan, where you learn the Arabic language and you make that niyyah, that intention to understand the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you want to join us and learn the Arabic language, you can join us at the Arabic Code Academy, where we teach you from complete zero to mastery, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, so that you can start to understand the book of Allah, the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and in general the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the books, the literature that is out there for you to be able to access that and benefit from it as well. I hope inshallah ta'ala you guys benefited from this video, and if you have any other benefits or differences, or even if you may disagree with me in regards to this differentiation between the dialects and MSA and the Arabic of the Quran, please feel free to mention some points below. Inshallah ta'ala, we'd love to learn further. May Allah bless you all. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.